Hey everybody, John here. Welcome back to Catbird Hill. So no surprises here. We're going to be chipping today. And I want to talk to you a little bit about chipping. I have other videos that I've done on the Woodmaxx PTO driven chipper, which I just showed you. And I'll put a link to one of those up there. You can kind of see my review of this chipper that I did years ago. I've had this now probably for probably almost 10 years. And it's been an amazing tool. It's probably one of the best PTO attachments I've ever had for the tractor. But I want to talk to you a little bit about chipping. So you know from previous videos how many trees we have here on Catbird Hill. And just giving you a little quick tour. You know, this is just one section of there goes a pileated woodpecker flying. This is just one section of our yard. These are two massive sycamore trees here. Here's a silver maple that's kind of at the end of its life. We have another sycamore behind it here. And then, as you can see, just scanning the horizon, just tons and tons of trees. And I've only walked about 30 feet here since I started showing you the trees. Not to mention all the trees that we have back here as we move toward the rear of the property. And one of the things that I have to admit that we did, or we thought years ago, 20 years ago, when we actually toured this property for the very first time, interested in buying it, is the previous owners had a lot of piles of brush, branches and so forth. They might have had, I don't know, half a dozen very large piles of brush scattered around the property. And back then, not having a large property and not really understanding where all this brush came from, we were kind of critical. And we were thinking, gosh, how could somebody just let piles of brush accumulate like that? It doesn't look real nice. The brush is laying all over. It looks kind of untidy. And it didn't take more than about a year for us to figure how quickly brush piles can accumulate, even with the very best efforts that you maintain, trying to keep the property up to speed. When you're clearing trees or cutting things down that are dead, you try to clean that up as much as possible. And so what we found is that maybe after a year, we were now accumulating brush piles. And so ultimately that led to the decision to purchase the wood chipper for the tractor, which we've used a lot over the years. But I want to show you something that happens if you don't stay on top of your chipping. So these are branches from some of the dead Japanese scholar trees that I cut down back in the wintertime. And so the trees were dropped in this direction here, and I bucked them up and we made firewood, and all that firewood is sold and gone now. But what I was doing was sort of casting off the branches into an area that they wouldn't be in the way of us walking or driving the tractor through here. And I went to the effort of trying to make a bit of a pile so that when I did chip them, everything would more or less try to gather the bulk of it in one spot. But here we are almost 6 months later, and you can see I haven't gotten to this. And here's the problem: when you don't get to this stuff quickly, this is what you start finding. You have branches that need to be chipped that are now sitting covered in grass and weeds, and it's just a mess. Pulling this stuff out, hunting for it. You're walking through this brush or this grassy kind of weedy area here, and even if you pull up the branches that you see, I guarantee you're going to miss a few and you're going to trip on them. So this is why you need to chip early and often. That's going to be my new motto, is early and often. Otherwise, you're going to end up with all the brush piles that we saw when we first came onto this property 20 years ago. And this actually is a pretty small pile compared to others that we have created over the years. So the best case scenario, I think, when you are managing this kind of a property and you've got a lot of trees, and even if you're not cutting trees down, if you're just managing what I would call the deadfall, you know, you get a big windstorm any time of the year and you get a bunch of branches down, or you get, you know, some really severe weather, maybe with some straight line winds and heaven forbid a tornado, and you get a lot of branches down. The best thing to do if you have a chipper is to get rid of that stuff as soon as possible. You know, get it chipped, even if you leave it in a pile to use in your garden later on. And you should never use green wood chip on a garden area. It's gonna mess up your soil balance. It's gonna put a lot of nitrogen in the soil. It should really kind of compost down for at least maybe 9 months to a year before you actually use it in a garden for cultivation. I use it fresh. I use fresh wood chips on trails and paths all the time, actually, to suppress weeds and create a little better traction for the tractor on the hilly property here. But the best case scenario is when you get to accumulate some branches and brush, get it off the ground as quickly as possible, because otherwise you're dealing with this. This stuff here is just deadfall. These are just branches that have come down over the past, you know, maybe year. We'll just sort of zoom in up there. You can see, you know, some branches lying on the ground. You know, if you were to pile all this stuff up, it's going to make a pretty decent pile. So we're going to get to chipping. We're going to see if we can knock out this pile right here. So not too bad for about 25 minutes of work. Probably only about a quarter of the pile left. Got to stop for dinner. But we've got ourselves a nice pile of chips. So that's probably about 3.5 feet tall, 3.5 feet wide. And so this stuff is ready for the garden. This wood is all dead. It's been dead for a long time. So this is safe. You can actually see, you might have seen some of it is real fine. The stuff had rotted. There's a couple of pine branches I threw in there. But 99% of this is old stuff. It can go right on the garden. And I'm happy to do that because we have plenty of areas to mulch. Okay, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier in the video. Chip early and chip often. This really, took very little time. Like I said, maybe 25 minutes or so to get through almost all of that pile. I still have some other branches down there, so probably another 15 minutes or so, and this whole area will be totally cleaned up. And I'm really going to try to commit to not letting this stuff happen. I absolutely can see how easy it is to let it happen when you get busy. But honestly, if you just, I have the chipper on the back of the tractor at least 50-60% of the time, so I'm usually ready to go. It's just a matter of dedicating some time to do it. I had mentioned earlier, I put up a link to the video I did on my review of the Woodmaxx TM-86H PTO chipper earlier. Please check that video out. I did several videos on the Woodmaxx. A great piece of equipment. I think 10 years ago I probably paid about $2,500 for this, and I'll put a link to the Woodmaxx equipment website below. They're an amazing company. I've been very, very impressed with everything about them, from the sales, customer service, ordering parts. Just absolutely a great company to work with. I believe they're based in New York. This machine, I could not ask more from it than what it's done, and I think, as long as I maintain it, I don't think I'll ever need another chipper. I always get comments when I've done the chipper videos. A handful of people say, "That's ridiculous, that thing is so slow, are you insane?" Look, it's a PTO driven chipper. This is not a production wood chipper. You can't compare this with a Vermeer or Bandit or even some of the faster hydraulic powered chippers. This is meant for occasional chipping, which is what I do here. So I don't need anything more than this. You saw how I was working it. I'm loading it. It's self-feeding. The roller, the drum is pulling the material into the chipper blades. As it's doing that, I'm going and getting another couple of branches. So for a one-man operation, it's the perfect pace, and I could do this at that pace all day long. I don't have to be rushing. I'm not getting into the haste makes waste behavior where I might injure myself or trip or something like that because I'm rushing. I can take my time, get the job done, and get it done safely. So Woodmaxx still makes a chipper that would be this scale. I don't know if they've changed the model number. I think they've changed some of the styling of it, but basically I think it works the same. It's PTO driven. It's got a hydraulic pump that runs off the PTO. You can adjust the speed of the hydraulic flow to speed up or slow down the feed drum. It's a great machine, so I can't recommend it highly enough. So thanks for watching. I want you all to hold me accountable for chipping early and chipping often. If you in future videos, if you see a pile of branches or a brush pile, you need to call me out on that. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, John here from Catbird Hill. Take care.